Do you walk in a pace of grace, or do you find yourself pushed, pulled, prodded, and overcome with the frustrations of daily life? Welcome to Healing Rain. I pray that during this interview with Becky Thompson, author, that you would find the healing rest of God, that you would experience through our conversation how you can walk with Jesus, yoked to him. He's the stronger one leading you. Today on Healing Rain, I'm happy to have Becky Thompson back on the show. Welcome, Becky.
Thank you so much, Sue. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
One of the things I love about what you bring is hope and healing to moms. I love your focus on moms because every mom needs to know that she's not alone. So, do you have a moment where you just needed God's hope and healing?
Yeah, I do. Do you want today's or last week's? Where do we want to
Wherever
start?
you would start, Becky.
Honestly, I live in that space of needing the Lord's hope and healing, but the one that really comes to mind, I have a very specific moment, and really, we could start really early in the day, but the moment where the Lord met me was knees to my chest, curled up in the back of my closet, just saying, God, I need you. I can't handle this tonight. It wasn't like I had had a series of massive things unfold. I wasn't in the middle of what anybody would say, yeah, that's understandable. I am just a mom in 2025, raising children who love the Lord in a world that feels like it's falling apart. And so earlier that night, I had been, it's probably just like anybody else's evening, any other regular mom in a regular house in a regular street. I was cooking dinner. One kid was saying, have you seen my basketball jersey? Another was saying, I want to go over to my friend's house. Will you drive me? The other was watching TV in the great room, and I have one of those houses where living room, dining room, kitchen, it's all connected. So everybody's always in everybody else's space. It is a giant failure of today's architecture for a mom's mental health, I think. But um, no, the room was just overwhelming. And I guess really life had been overwhelming, a bunch of just really little things. And I have learned that when I get to a certain place in my mind or my heart or even just my body where I can feel that tension in my shoulders or I can feel that tension in my chest or my breathing is short and I'm acting like I'm under attack, but really it's just my life that I've created. And I just turned the oven off and I told my kids I'll be in the other room for a minute. And I went to the quiet, dark corner of my closet. Not a cute place, just my closet with shoes and clothes and dirty clothes and things that should be put away. And I sat on the floor and I just said, Lord, I need you. And Sue, one of the things the Lord has been teaching me about healing and my journey of healing is that it's okay to have these moments where we just want to pull away. It's okay to want to hide. It's okay to want to pull back from everything that feels too much. Actually, it's really important that we allow space for the Lord to come and meet us. But when the Lord invites us into a relationship with Him, He invites us to stop hiding on our own and to come, like the psalmist said, hide in Him. And He becomes our living refuge. And so that's my story of a moment when I needed the Lord to come and meet me. And, I really wish I could say, it was a amazing supernatural encounter with the presence of God. I left that room encouraged, inspired, reset, renewed. My mind, heart, body was ready. But honestly, I think it's really, really honest to say, I believe the Lord met me even when I couldn't sense him. I believe the Lord spoke truth over my heart in that moment, even if I couldn't hear him as clearly as I had in other moments. And the whole
That
thing
is
took about,
so beautiful,
yeah,
Becky.
it was just about 15 minutes. I washed my face, I went back out to the living room, and something had taken place in that closet. It just wasn't lights and shiny like sometimes we think every encounter with the Lord needs to be.
It was the great exchange. Your tiredness, your frustration for his rest. And that's
That's
powerful. And as a mama of 6 and 11 grandchildren, I just want to say I'm really proud of you because you had positioned your heart. And I have so many memories, Becky, where I didn't do that. I
yeah.
struggled with anger
Mm,
and I could be in those tipping point moments. And I, as a mom, would either raise my voice to some certain degree or blame somebody for not doing something. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that
sure.
as moms we can act out in the flesh when really it's just the pressure cooker of life. Um, so positioning your heart to be healed before the Lord is really a mature way to walk with Him.
Thank you. That's not something I did in the early day. I mean, my oldest is going to be 16 this year, so I don't have grandkids yet. I don't have grown children even yet. But these are things that over the last 15 years, the Lord has taught me. And so when I share a story like this, Sue, I think about myself, my younger self. I think about how I wish someone had said, you know, go to a place where, I'm not saying
Mhm.
withdraw or leave your children or do anything like that. I'm just
Mhm.
saying it's okay to need a minute. It's important to recognize when you need to stop pushing through because I really feel like that's where the enemy hooks us and pulls
Mhm.
us. And then there's so much pain and there's so much need for
Mhm.
future healing. Truly, I look back at my
Mhm.
own moments when we don't when we push through.
Mhm.
I think it's such a
Mhm.
bait of the enemy to say you have to keep going when the invitation of the Lord is to rest. Now, I also feel like I'm sure you have a question. You want to ask me another question, but I also feel like right here I need to say this. I recognize there are times when you have to keep going. Like I understand that in our lives as moms, there are moments when if I don't do it right now, no one will do it, and this has a deadline. We have to be there. We have to
Mhm.
show up. We're already obligated. This kid needs a diaper change. There are times when we have to push through. But what I have
Mhm.
learned over this part of my healing journey, because I really feel like the last 15 years and motherhood itself has been its own healing journey. The Lord has met me in new ways. But what I've learned here is the sooner we can acknowledge, man, I'm not where I need to be. I'm not in my heart and mind where I want to be. Lord, come and meet me here. We don't have as
Mhm.
many moments where we
Mhm.
have to go. If you need me, I'll be in the back of the closet. So,
Mhm. That's so powerful. I used to call it stop, drop, and roll. Stop what you're doing, drop to your knees,
mm,
and roll the concerns off of your shoulders onto God.
so good.
And truthfully, in being a mom, there's frequent moments that you need to do that. And it's through the day. I remember one thing that God said to me at the point where I still had babies in the crib. And he would say this so loudly as a person that liked to get things done. He said,
Sure.
there's enough time in the day to do everything I've called you to do. Not my checklist, not something else, but being in a pace of grace. And your children can feel, because mom's the heart of the home, if
That's
you're
right.
walking in peace and rest and joy, there that creates safety for them.
That's it. That's exactly it. It's safety for our kids, but you know what? I think experiencing that safety for ourselves and feeling safe in our own lives. I'm not talking about safe from circumstances. I'm talking about being what I talk about in my new book, Healing Rest, being safely held. And when we see as
Yeah.
moms that we are
Mm.
safely held by a good God who loves us and promises to never leave us, when we can live from that place, we can experience rest for
Mm.
not only our
Mm.
souls, but as a result, that soul rest flows out to our hearts, minds, bodies, and our children experience the overflow of being raised by a mother who makes decisions as one who's safely held, who leads as one who is safely held, who loves as one who's safely held.
That's so beautiful. I I know that there are some mothers that are listening and there may be something that's going on right now and you're just realizing you need rest. Are there ways that you have found to walk in that rest? What has helped you as a mom?
You know, I think I shared this with a friend the other day. We love checklists. We love checklists. We love steps and we love tutorials. We do because if someone walks the path in front of me and can tell me what worked for them, perhaps I can adjust my own life, right? To fit into that. And so I like to say I like checklists because the idea of getting all the ideas down on paper are great, but I will tell you right now, I'm probably not the same as many of your listeners. We might not even be the same here, Sue, because I get a checklist and I do not, Becky Thompson, I don't love checking it off. Sometimes I look down at that list and I go, what have I done? Now I can see it all. And I don't always understand how long those things take. And so I'll be unreasonable with, I think I can accomplish all this today, when really I can't do any of it today. I might be able to get one of these small things at the bottom done. And so checklists for me in my life aren't the most functional.
I
But I know
think
we're
that's
not
really
talking.
true. No, I think that's really true in this sense.
Yes.
Right now in your life, your children have to be the primary. There
Hmm.
may be one or two things you can do in addition to that.
Yes.
But the reality is there's so many unknowns coming on that to have too many things on the checklist actually creates more stress rather than if you're just walking with Jesus every day, then you're
Hmm.
accomplishing what he wants you to do.
That's exactly right. I mean, you said it. That's the heart of it. And in my conversation with my friend that I mentioned,
Mhm.
I said to her, I wish I had a step-by-step plan. I've written other books like that. I've written books where I've said, if you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, you can follow the same journey the Lord took me on. And, He's got a personalized path for you, but these were the steps that he used for me. But in this conversation about rest that I had with the Lord, I said, well, what do I tell them to do? And he was so clear. So he said, you can't use the
Mhm.
same system that broke them to heal them. You can't give
Mhm.
them to-dos to find rest. You can't say add this
Mhm.
practice and you'll find rest.
Mhm.
Again and again and again, the invitation is come to me. So if we want to look at what does that look like practically, it looks like praying, but not like I have to put everybody outside the room, go to an isolated, lonely place like Jesus and pray. Sometimes it's like when Jesus prayed out loud and says, I'm praying so other people can hear me right now, Father. I know that you already hear me, but I say this for the benefit of those around me. Sometimes it's that kind of prayer out loud in front of everybody. Jesus, help. And it's the remembrance that he's there in that moment, not the idea of him. I know you and I are on the same page, but for our listener, I think he's there with you, not the concept, not just the
Mhm.
story. The Spirit of God can invade your space right now, and only he can order your steps. Only he can give you truly divine directions. Only He can tell you when to close your mouth and not say the hurtful thing that's coming up that you want to say in
Mm,
frustration.
mm,
Only He can invite you to a place in your heart, right? Sometimes the invitation of the Lord is to come to a place within where He is, where the Spirit of God dwells within us, and we meet Him right here in this space even as everything around us unfolds. It really is more, we're talking about a perspective shift. We're talking about a spiritual reality shift, as opposed to if I do X, Y, or Z, then I will experience this. It is an invitation to come to the Lord, maybe not for strength, maybe not for hope, maybe
mm,
not for joy, maybe not for anything on our list that we usually come to ask Him for.
mm, mm,
Maybe we just come to the Lord and say, my
mm.
heart needs rest because I can't keep running like this.
Yeah. And the way that Jesus looked out over the crowd, had mercy, and he said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, for my yoke is easy. Get yoked with me, walk with
Mm.
me." Because there's something about Jesus, you don't see him racing down. Even to meet Jairus' daughter, he wasn't
Mhm.
running. He had a measured pace
That's
that
right.
he was able to be interrupted by a
Mhm.
woman that needed healing. And so Jesus becomes our model here.
Mhm. That's exactly right. He is our model. And when we stay in step with Jesus, here's the thing. Here's what we have to remember about yokes. The one that has the greater power determines the pace. The one that has the greater power determines the direction. The one that has the greater power determines how it is done. And when we step under Jesus's yoke, our job is to just stay obedient to him who has the greater power, him who knows where he's going, him who's setting the pace, him who's deciding what needs to be done. Sue, I shared this the other day. I said, sometimes we want the load to become lighter because we know what we're carrying and we want to point to Jesus and say, you grab that. I've got this end. I'll use your supernatural strength added to my plans and we'll get it. But isn't that real? Don't we really do that? Even in our prayer time, Lord, I need your strength for all of, and it's usually my plans. And I'm just calling it out because I think when Jesus says he's offering a better way, he means it. And the invitation
Mhm,
isn't get under my yoke, Jesus. I need your power and
mhm,
strength and might. It is your power is made greater in my weakness. So when I come up under what you're already doing, Lord, when I lay down on my plans,
mhm,
agendas, purposes, I lay them down to willingly submit
mhm,
to taking on your yoke. I gain
mhm.
strength for the job, just like you said, that He has already set out for us to do that day.
That's so beautiful. You know, we haven't talked since my book Healing Rain came out, and I wrote an entire chapter on rest, and it's an acronym he gave me, but it
I
was in
love
a
it.
very specific situation. So, as a mom that has adult children,
Mhm.
we used to pastor in Nashville, but we moved to Dallas, and all of our adult children, one by one or couple by couple, followed us
I love
to
it.
Dallas. And we had this year, and I call it, a year of laughter because it's adult kids in one house again while they're getting going and getting their jobs and, finding their own house, all getting married. Like it was so fun, but can you imagine how crazy that was? Because
I mean,
grandchildren were being born, just the
wow.
beginning of that. But we were also pastoring a church.
Mhm.
And so, of course, you've got Sunday morning, things that you're doing. But I heard the Lord clearly say, He
Mhm.
said, I want you to rest. I want you to take 5 weeks off, which seemed impossible,
Mhm.
not preaching.
Mhm.
And then He gave me this acronym, revive, expectancy, surrender, and trust. And it was so powerful because rest is part of what we need. And sometimes we don't think we can clear our schedule,
Mhm.
but we really can.
Yeah. The Lord can make that space that we can't make on our own. Um, I've experienced that so many times when I think I can't get it all done or I can't find a break. And the next thing you know, something's happened. But, you know, the Lord can make the way where there seems to be no way. And sometimes, you know, when I had, I think it was my youngest son now, so it's been 10 years, I was put on bed rest. And there was a time
Mhm.
when I had been already pushing really hard in my ministry and my work and with my two older children, and my pace of life was too much. And for the sake of my family, for the sake of that little baby, I had to rest. There was no choice but that I rest. And I think we can accept that as moms sometimes. Well, yeah, of course, for the sake of your health and the sake of the baby, you have to rest. It's important. But I'm not sure we always give ourselves that same kind of permission to
Mhm.
take the necessary time to heal
Mhm.
and to say, wait, the
Mhm.
truth still applies. I need that rest for my own heart. I need that
Yeah.
rest for my own body. For the sake
Yeah.
of my family, I need the Lord to make a way for me to rest. And
Yeah.
so rest really long enough to heal. And I love that you called it, a season of laughter, a year of laughter, because there's so much healing, but in laughter. But I think about these
Mhm.
moms, the moms I minister to often, and they feel like they've lost their laughter. They don't even remember the last time
Mhm.
they felt that joy. And man, if I could encourage a mom listening who's like, that's me. I'm there, whether, she's got a newborn or she has, a newborn grandbaby. I believe that sometimes we
Mhm.
think we have to rush to happiness or truly to joy. We want to rush out of the season that's hard. We want to rush back into the time when we can feel God's goodness. But the healing that takes place that gets us there to that joy, the Lord is a part of that journey. He's close to the brokenhearted. The gift is his comforter, the Holy Spirit who's called comforter, who's called helper in the midst of the hard places. And I'm just going to be so honest here, Miss Sue. I told a counselor in this last year, I said the gift of this last season, when life has been so hard and I've needed the Lord more than ever, is that I have found that I don't want to rush back to life being so good and so happy that I fail to realize how desperate I need him every day and
Yes.
how much I need him
Yes.
all
And
the
and
time.
what I love about what you're saying is you got to the point in your body that you needed bed rest.
Mhm.
I didn't know that I was at the point that I needed spiritual rest
That's
because
so good.
really I went on a time of encounter and waiting and
Mm,
listening. I didn't stop doing task, but I positioned my mind and my heart. I didn't preach,
mhm,
on those days, but I encountered Jesus so many times. It's a positioning your heart. And
yeah,
if you can hear him prior to the point that your body falls apart,
mhm,
but we don't always listen that deeply or intently. And I do pray for listeners that if you're not experiencing laughter every day,
mm,
then seriously think about what do you need to do? What makes you happy? What brings joy? What are there things? I say this to young moms all the time. What do you like? Like I used to like taking a bath. That was a treat for me.
yeah,
What is it that you can carve out in your day?
mhm,
Um, Cooperating with your husband or a friend.
Mhm.
What can you carve out that you create these moments of laughter and rest and joy that's specifically tailored for you?
That's good. That's good. You know, the path to peace is tailor-made for us, and it is dyed red with the blood of Jesus. And he has paid with his life, um, and the ultimate sacrifice for us to have access to everything that it is in his presence. And in his presence, we know is the fullness of joy. And so as we invite the Lord to come close in those moments, I just think that there will be times for those in the hardest places that they have glimpses of, the hope and the healing that's leading to that joy. It's such a good
Mhm.
word, Miss Sue. That's so good.
Yeah, and really joy is deeper than happiness.
Truly.
Happiness is anchored on what's happening.
Mm,
And joy, you can have something major happening, which, for me, truthfully, was yesterday.
no.
Because as a mother, as a parent, you never stop parenting.
Mm,
Even though my oldest daughter and son-in-law and their four children, they have their own home, they've got their own work. But here in Texas, part of the roof was blown off,
I'm so
and they were huddled on the stairway with their children, and literally some shards of glass came down on them. No one was hurt, etc. They were all safe, but my mom heart, I
Mhm.
mean, I just felt so out of control, you
Mm,
know, because it wasn't, they are adults. They are leading their own family, and yet you never stop being a mom, and you hurt. And yet I know we're celebrating Ellie's birthday and she's turning 5. So you know what
yay.
Ellie wanted to do?
What?
Ellie wanted to go right to school and tell everybody about what had just happened to her roof.
Wow.
And so that's what she wanted to do. That was her personality, her coping mechanisms. So, I mean, think about that. Something tragic had happened, but Ellie, and being childlike, she
Mhm.
laughed throughout that day.
And I feel like, truly that is a testament to your family and the security that she felt that in the middle of the storm she wasn't overwhelmed to the point of this hadn't caused pain that was beyond what she could handle or endure, that she was
She
like
was
this.
childlike. Yes.
She was childlike. She was childlike, but there are other children truly that have probably gone through that and they didn't have the same response, or something
Mm.
overwhelming like that. So for her to experience, even at such a young age, truly what it means to be safely kept or safely held, what a powerful testimony. I
That's
think about how,
powerful, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
she can think about that for
Yeah.
her whole life. That was the night the Lord held us through the storm.
Hmm. That's really good. And listeners, I want you to see something. What we just purposefully did a mindset shift. And the reason I'm saying this is really, you can look at things with difficulty, but if you shift it, you're able to go through painful things, and yet the fountain of joy bursts through it at the same time, because joy is based on our connection with Jesus Christ, not in what's happening in the world.
It's so good. It's so good and so true.
Well, as we close, Becky, this has been so fun. And what would you like Healing Rain listeners to know?
Mm. I just want them to know there's a lot I want them to know. But I think when we talk about feeling safely held by a good God, you know, it's hard it's hard to rest in arms that we don't fully trust
Yes.
and to feel like we're kind of still holding ourselves up somehow. So what I
Hmm.
hope they know, truly know to
Hmm.
the point of it changing some part of their heart or mind or story, or the way they look at the future or the Lord, is that even if they fully surrendered, fully let go of all of the situations they're trying to control, of all the past stories that they felt like they had to hold all those little pieces together, if they could fully release it to the Lord, they would find that his goodness was secure and they would find that they truly are safely held. And when I think about the listener going, but what about then? Because that's what I do. I think back and Lord, where were you then? What about then? What about that moment? I think about how the goodness of the Lord is not determined by the goodness of the world around us or the goodness of our situation, how the brokenness of the world doesn't get to change the goodness of God. So, my prayer would be that the healing rain listener would allow that healing rain of the Lord to overwhelm their hearts and wash away the fear of feeling like they have to hold the whole world together in their own strength because there's only one who
Yeah.
can. Amen.
I pray that as we close today, that the joy of the Lord would be your strength and that you would fight for that joy, that you would organize your mind, your heart, but also your life in a pace of grace to be yoked with the one that's greater than you, Jesus.